I feel like hierarchy was dismantled even further this year, and it feels like I got an even deeper understanding of my connection to the universe and how everybody has that connection to the universe, and how every person, your connection to the universe does not go via your mentor or your guru and their guru and their guru, or their mentor and their mentor and their mentor, and someone somewhere along the line is super enlightened and connected to the universe. That's not how it works. It's you and the universe, and it's them and the universe, and I respect every human being for who they are, and also for the higher self, their higher self.
Welcome to the Genius Unleashed podcast with Carly Marie. This is where we have potent conversations all around the idea of unleashing the genius within you, within me, within your clients, and within the next generation. Enjoy.
This is the thing, right? Is like, I decided to become somebody who reaches her edges and loves them open, like breathes love into her edges. I decided to become that. And so therefore that means that that's kind of what naturally happens, right? Now there are different areas in my life where that's harder to do, right? Particularly parenting is probably the area where it's most hard for me to do. And then there's some parts of relationship as well, which can feel a little bit challenging for me to sort of meet an edge and breathe it open with love. But what has happened is the areas in which I have focused on breathing those edges open, in terms of, where something will happen and I'm either okay or not okay, right? The areas that I've really focused on that are where I have, I guess, been able to do the most work, right? And become more resilient in those areas. Because here's the thing, is that all the things that happen to us in our life are designed to tool us up, right? They give us tools. And also, it's funny, this morning, right before this, I was writing in my journal, I was journaling, and I wrote, everything is evidence that. And because this is some of the work that we're going to do here, and much deeper in Visionary, which is the next big program, which I'm going to tell you guys about. But this is the kind of work that I do, is basically decide because my beliefs and my computer programs in my brain that run my operating system, right? So that this is how we naturally become somebody who naturally creates success and naturally handles things and naturally kind of make things work, right? So in order to become someone who naturally does that, rather than someone who has to work very hard to do that, we want to get our beliefs behind it. We want to get our programming in our mind, in our subconscious mind, to just kind of naturally drive us towards that without us having to think too much. So when I think about the beliefs that I want to believe to be true, just before this, I sat down and I was doing some journaling. I had a little bit of time before this started. I'm like, I'll get in the zone. And so I wrote, everything is evidence that the universe has my back. Everything is evidence that everything always works out for me. That I am smart and resilient and capable and beautiful and all of these things. And it's like, wow, look at this evidence. Look at the evidence that there's nothing I cannot handle, right? I mean, of course, there are much worse things that could have happened than I can't go live in a Facebook group and we have to make another one, right? Like, perspective, I know. But also, like, all the things that have happened this morning, I had these big plans, and it's just like this reminder from the universe that we can't always plan everything out. And that's what's interesting when it comes to things like this, where I'm like, okay, let's look at next year. We're not here to plan out next year necessarily. Apologize if that's what you're here for. We're going to do something much more powerful than that. We're going to set you up for a naturally successful 2021. Make sense? So when I was preparing for this, and also this, I'm seeing this as kind of like the pre-work for this big next program. It's kind of like the pre-step that ideally anyone who takes part in that next big program I'm going to launch called Visionary, ideally they will have taken part in this session here. And when I was sort of thinking about preparing that, I feel like in my mind I prepared this and that together, right? Of course you can just take part in this, it will certainly be beneficial, but there's always more work to do in all of these areas. I think that when I was tuning into that, I was really looking at like what changed for me this year. Because when someone was talking about like 2020 and what are you grateful for 2020, because a lot of people talk about how 2020 has been such a hard year and all of that. When I looked at 2020, I was like, this has been the best year of my life. And that's tricky to talk about publicly, because there are a lot of people that feel kind of triggered by that, because maybe there were a lot of challenges for them this year. People's businesses got shut down. Also, a lot of new businesses came out of those ashes because people looked at how they were doing things and went, okay, finally, I'm going to take this thing online. There are a lot of really positive changes in terms of new businesses being created this year, new connections being created. I know it was big for our family and connecting in different ways because we had so much time together throughout 2020. But when I look at what changed changed for me. I look at the photos of me from last year and this year, and it's not just a haircut, right? Like I look at the photos and I'm like, there is something in my eyes that is different. And I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out so I can help articulate it, so I can help share with other people so they can tap into that energy within themselves as well. And of course, my energy is different to your energy. But I feel like I tapped into some kind of source. I feel like what happened this year was I made some big, bold, brave moves towards the end of the previous year that I'm now kind of seeing the benefits of and seeing the roll-on effects of. So looking back, I'm so grateful to me of last year who went, okay, let's go, let's do this. And going into 2021, it feels like the same kind of energy of like, okay, let's go, let's do this. I'm up for this, right? It's like being willing to accept that my desires are divine guidance and that I get to have this and I get to have it fast. I think a lot of the time we're like, yeah, I know what I want and all of that. But often it kind of sits off in one day in the distance, or we can have it like, oh, I don't know, have it yet, right? And so I love to talk about energy. I love to talk about deciding, and I love to talk about becoming somebody. So looking at this last 12 months, I think that's what happened was I just became somebody who was capable of holding all the things that I want to hold in my life, holding all the things that I want to have in my life. So I let go of a whole bunch of stuff, but it wasn't like I did all this work of like, oh, I've got to let go of this. And I kind of just went like, stepping out of that and into this and deciding this is who I get to be now, and have that feel really real and have that feel like, oh, there's nothing to become. I already am my higher self. I am my higher self, right? We talk about higher self, and for me, the way I think about higher self is that's my soul. We're going to talk about heart and soul here a little bit, because this is probably the biggest shift in the most recently for me, the few months recently, and it's going to be a big, like we're going to go super deep dive into it in Visionary, but I definitely want to touch on it here because it's really important. It's a really important piece, this heart and soul piece, because when I think about what shifted the last few months, it was my higher self really not just took the wheel and was telling me what to do, but is like in my body being me. So when I think about higher self, I think about soul. I think about my soul. I think about, and my soul, my higher self is my connection to the universe. That's how I think about that. So when I think about my higher self, it's my true self. Like my soul is like my true self, and then there's all of this human stuff. And I think what changed was I went, my higher self is not going to lead me astray, right? If my higher self wants to do a live stream, or my higher self wants to write a post, I think of my higher self or my soul as my creative director, and my heart is my creative genius. So let's dive straight on into this, shall we? My soul is my creative director, my heart is my creative genius. So if I think about being like trusting, if there is a team of creatives that are creating a thing, I don't know, they're making a movie or they're making an ad campaign or whatever, they have to just kind of blindly take the guidance and direction and leadership of the creative director, or else everybody's moving in different directions and it's not getting done. It's not going to work, right? So the way I think about my soul is it's my creative director, and that it's not going to lead me astray. So if it tells me to write a post, or it tells me to do a live stream, or it tells me to make some kind of move, there's a bit of blind faith that follows. And there's a little bit of willingness, in fact, a whole lot of willingness for it to not go the way that I think. So if I'm a creative genius and I'm the graphics person, right? And I'm on there doing all the things, and the creative director's over my shoulder. This is kind of how it works. This is what I learned at uni. The creative director will be over your shoulder going, make that pink, make that bigger, right? That sort of thing. And if the creative director is doing that, and the creative genius person who knows what to click and all knows how to do the thing and operate the stuff, and if that person is like, no, I don't know, like, right? That's going to be like this tension kind of thing. But if they're able to sit in that space of like, I feel this kind of tension of, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how this is going to play out, but I trust this person, or I trust this voice to guide me. Then they go, all right, make it pink. And then suddenly they're like, whoa, I just saw it come together. And that is what my last 12 months has been like, of like, soul, okay, what are you doing? Right, what? We're going to launch Sorceress. We're going to do this. We're going to write this post. We're going to make this move. We're going to stop taking on one-on-one clients. We're going to, what? Like, huh? What are you doing? Like, that's kind of what it felt like. But as I was like, all right, okay, sure, we'll make it pink. Okay, we'll make that bigger, and then go, oh, fuck. I see now what you were creating. I see now what you were doing, right? So I'm kind of, as the creative genius who's doing the things. So for me, I'm the hands on the keyboard, or I'm kind of just letting it pour out from my heart, the creative genius. Then what happens is this sense of, oh, see it now. I see what you were trying to create. And that's what my life feels like right now, on the other side of all the big one after the other up levels that have happened in the last 12 months for me, with the biggest ones being in the last 3 months when I started hitting 6-figure months in my business, started creating more balance in my business and things like that. You don't hear me talk about balance often, but you know what I mean. Harmony. And now that is really what I'm in that, on the other side of that right now, going, okay, what next? Okay, let's look at 2021. Makes sense? So I think no matter what I ever teach you, no matter how many of my courses you come into or programs you do with me, if the one thing you take away from your experience with me is that you start to kind of almost like blindly following that direction from your soul, I will know I will have had a very profound effect on your life. Makes sense? And when I think, a lot of people are like, I don't know how to like hear my soul. I don't know how to really tune into that. And I'm like, well, my soul speaks to me in different ways. So for me, like I kind of hear words, right? I'll be not hear. It's not like a voice in my ear. I'm not hearing voices, but like a word will come to me. Like the word sorceress came to me. I'm like, sorceress, that's a cool word. Okay, that's a thing, right? And you get more practiced at that. But for other people, they see things or they feel things, or they'll see a sign somewhere and be like, oh, it's making me feel something, right? Like different people receive it in different ways. But for me, it's about what activates that for me, what activates my genius, like being able to hear the creative direction that my creative genius can start to turn into something. So what is it that you do that activates that for you? And that's the stuff that we want to build into your natural rhythms of how you do life going forward from here and into 2021. That's the stuff we just want to build in. So for me, it is writing. It means I cannot wake up in the morning and pick up my phone. I have to pick up my pen, because that activates my genius from the second I open my eyes. Because my soul is talking to my heart, is pouring out onto the page, right? Soul, heart, page is kind of how it goes. So what we want to do is look at what activates your genius and what allows you to tap into that wisdom that our human self and our human brain can't even really comprehend until we see, holy shit, that's what you were trying to create in my life. I see that now. Like when the universe went, hey, guess what, Carly? Your husband's been cheating on you for 1.5 years, and all that discomfort we've been giving you to tell you that it was time to leave that you weren't listening to, guess what? Boom, now it's time, right? And that was always meant to happen because it has fed so much into my work, right? I wrote articles about that, which helped me to grow a following, which then led to la 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 la, right? And now we're here. So I look back and I'm like, that had to happen. And I had to be broken down enough that all of my ideas about how life is supposed to be went out the window. So when I started to develop feelings for a man 18 years older than me, who didn't have a six-pack, when generally that's what I was looking for in a man prior to that, right? Didn't even have hair on his head, right? And had grown-up children almost as old as me. And I'm like, I want more kids, you know, thinking he's not going to want that. So when I saw this man, because I'd been broken down, all my illusions about life had been broken down, I was able to actually allow myself to feel feelings for him. Otherwise, I might have been way too sensible about that. So when I look back at what the universe was trying to create, it's like, I see that now. So for me, from that, it is about creating a life that allows me to be as much as possible tuned into that. So what activates your genius? Is it writing? Is it being in nature? Is it making love? Like, what is it? Because that's the stuff that from today gets to be like the priority. And I think what we need to do is always be coming back to this, like always coming back to this and not just going like, no, I know I've got my system and you know, it's fine and I'm not going to change it and this is what I do in the mornings. And I think when we kind of get married to our systems, that's when it starts to get really stuffing, because you will outgrow your systems over and over. If you're on a really fast track of growth, you will outgrow the way that you do things. I was writing my book at 5:30 in the morning for a while there and it worked really, really well. And now I'm just like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want writing to be a chunk of my work day. It doesn't need to be something I sacrifice sleep for or sacrifice cuddling with my babies or making love with my lover in the mornings. I don't need to sacrifice that because I don't believe in sacrifice, right? And more, like I'm creating evidence of that in my life, that sacrifice is not required. At the beginning of when COVID started to happen, I felt very called. Called is the only word I can use to describe what I felt. I felt called to lead and to step into that, okay guys, like what this year has felt like is a big leveling out, where a lot of people who had built a bit of a house of cards, maybe it's a kind of bit of fell over a little bit, and that people we'd put on pedestals, those pedestals, they didn't come tumbling down, but the pedestals kind of dismantled, I think, a lot this year. And a lot of us have really found, I know for me, probably one of the big, I was having this beautiful conversation at a play date with Julie Tenner yesterday. For those Julie Tenner fans in the house, I'm so lucky that I live super close to her. And we catch up sometimes and we're having this conversation, and she said to me, like, this is the thing, like those friends you have these really enriching conversations with, where it's not just like, what have you been up to? But it's like, she said, what are you taking from 2021? And that was one of the things, was like, I feel like hierarchy was dismantled even further this year, and it feels like I got an even deeper understanding of my connection to the universe, and how everybody has that connection to the universe, and how every person, your connection to the universe does not go via your mentor or your guru and their guru and their guru, or their mentor and their mentor and their mentor, and someone somewhere along the line is super enlightened and connected to the universe. That's not how it works. It's you and the universe, and it's them and the universe, and I respect every human being for who they are, and also for the higher self, their higher self. And some of the people who have had the most profound effect in my life and business this year have been the people who I pay the least to, right? They're not necessarily the huge mentors and coaches with the huge followings. It's been really, really cool this year. Okay, so every day you get to decide to be your higher self, to operate from your higher self. Now, your human self will have a whole lot to say about that, but that's the work. The work is about choosing your soul every day, tuning into your soul every day, and taking that guidance and noticing when your human self is stepping in and going like, no, but wait, right? When your human self is like, no, actually, let's not do that, right? So I think the skill is being able to tell the difference of like, what's my higher self telling me here and what's my human self telling me here. So setting up your days in a way that nurtures your higher self, that nurtures your energy, that gets you tapped into that guidance of, I know exactly what I need to do, right? And here's the thing, is that you will want to argue with it at times, because sometimes it's telling you to do stuff that just doesn't make any sense. But it always works out. It just always works out. And here's the thing, you got to choose that belief. You got to choose the belief that it just always works out. And if you choose that belief, then evidence of that will be everywhere. The evidence of that will be everywhere. And that's one of the journal prompts I did this morning, was everything is evidence that. Now, the prompt I've got for you as we go a little bit further in, and I'll tell you about that, is that there is evidence everywhere that. Because here's the thing with these prompts with beliefs, is you've got to choose something that doesn't feel like too much of a stretch. And then over time, you shift the beliefs. So like an example would be, you might say, all right, a lot of people say to me, I'm a perfectionist, or I'm an overthinker, right? Things like that. Things that we kind of like, we actually wear as a badge of honor, but also we use it as an excuse for not being able to do things. So we want to be done with all of that moving into 2021. The stuff you wear like a badge of honor that you use as a reason to not do the things that your higher self is asking you to do. Like, I'm busy, I'm overwhelmed, I'm an overthinker, I'm a perfectionist, I have so much to do. Those sorts of things, right? Those identities that we hold on to, that prevent us from, that we wear like a badge of honor, but also prevent us from doing the things. So when someone says to me that, I'm like, okay, I can ask you to install a belief that I'm not a perfectionist at all, right? I can ask you to do that. That's probably not going to work that well. And here's the thing, this is what a lot of people do. They try and choose a belief that is so far from where they're at, and they just say it in the mirror 10 times a day, and they think it's going to install that way. And it doesn't actually work that way. So how I normally do it with a client who's saying that they're a perfectionist, I'm like, okay, let's shift that. Can you get behind the belief that sometimes I have a tendency towards perfectionism? Yeah, cool, that. Yeah, sometimes I have a tendency. Okay, so that's how we're going to say it from now on. Okay, that's how we're going to say it. And we're going to look for evidence of that, because we're going to look for evidence of times when you're not actually being a perfectionist about it at all. You're not that fussed. Is your car a mess right now? Cool, then you're probably not a perfectionist, right? Like, let's actually separate you and the perfectionism. And this is like this with any belief. Then the next step, okay, got that, sweet. Okay, now let's install the next level of belief, which is I used to have a tendency towards perfectionism. Right? Can you get behind that? Yeah, okay. We're making shifts now. Like, yeah, it's asking you to grow. It's asking you to do things differently. It's asking you to shift. And then from there, it would be like, let's use overthinking as that example. So I used to have a tendency to overthink. Now I'm like, let's turn it into a positive. I'm a deep thinker. Can you get behind that belief? Yes, of course you can. You're a deep thinker. You're not an overthinker, you're a deep thinker. You used to do a thing that you called overthinking, but we're done with that now. Let's be goldfish. There's an awesome show called Ted Lasso, where a soccer coach says to one of his guys who did a bad, crappy kick or whatever, I don't know what happened, came off the field and goes, man, sorry coach, I screwed up, blah, blah, right? And it was all in his energy field was all clogged up with, damn it, regret, mad at myself. Ted Lasso looks at him and he goes, do you know why the goldfish is the most unique animal in the world, or something like that? And he said, because it has a 3-second memory. Be a goldfish, get back out there, right? Leave it, let it go. So that's what we want to do. We want to be goldfish. I said to Darren the other day of something I was a bit worried about and upset about, and I said to him, I want to be a goldfish about this. I'm working on being a goldfish about this. It's become a thing in our house now. So what we want to do when we work with beliefs like this, what happens is that you create a habit and you naturally become someone who thinks a particular way. And this is the thing, we want to set up your life so that you are constantly being bombarded with evidence of what you want to believe to be true, right? Because I don't believe that the most powerful progress happens through dogged determination and dedication. I believe that the most powerful progress comes because it's just due to who you naturally are. And that's the level that we're working at here. Is shifting who you naturally. This is not, I'm going to go, here's a checklist, here's a system, use this app, do it this way. There is a whole $1 billion industry throwing that shit at you. And has it worked? Probably not, right? So we're going to do this a different way. I understand motivational intelligence. It's what I teach. It's what I talk about is motivational intelligence. It's what fascinates me. It's what I study. It's what I ask questions about and pull apart all day long. I love it. I love it. I love it. And it's what I'm here to do. And what I have discovered with feminine core beings, those who are feminine at their core, doesn't mean you're necessarily into floral dresses, but if you are feminine, so most women and some men, for feminine core beings, that's not really how it works, but it's more about just naturally becoming somebody who does those things so that you don't have to think about it. And when I look at the last 12 months, I think that has been a really big shift for me. Is that over time I have worked more and more on becoming somebody who naturally does a thing because of what I believe to be true, because of what the programs that are running in my mind, putting me on autopilot towards what I want to create. So what we want to do here is create an environment that supports that and create habits of choosing soul every day so that you become someone who naturally just does that.
I hope you loved this episode. If you did, you will absolutely adore Formidable Women. Formidable Women is a beautiful online space that I created that is for the women of the world who want to be more powerful, more courageous, and more clear as they move forward in their lives and make a positive impact in the world. You can check it out at carlymarie.com/formidable. It is a monthly membership and anytime, and it gives you access to my entire suite of online courses for the time in which you are enrolled, as well as live new content every week. I would love to see you join us and be a part of that beautiful community. Head to carlymarie.com/formidable.